Meteorologists at the National Hurricane Center study tropical systems throughout the year, not just during hurricane season. As broadcast meteorologists, we work with the Hurricane Center to make sure you get the most up-to-date information. Now, tropical systems can be very dangerous, but if we better understand their inner workings, we can better prepare for what is to come next. Here we introduce you to a new product from the National Hurricane Center that will open your eyes to the dangers of storm surge. To put a hurricane into perspective, it's not simply just an organized mass consisting of thousands of thunderstorms. It's literally an enormous factory that covers hundreds and hundreds of miles. Let's just say if we could harvest the power of a hurricane, we could have an energy source that would last a very long time. The total amount of energy released during the development of clouds and rain within a hurricane is 200 times more energy than from all the electricity generated worldwide. That's a lot of power. And that is also why we have to prepare for so many different hazards, from wind to flooding rains and even tornadoes.
The hurricane is more complicated. There are more hazards. I mean, again, you've got the storm surge, the wind, the rain, and the tornadoes, and you've really got to have a plan that deals with all of those hazards. And just focusing on one thing is not enough. You need to have a plan for all of those.
Now, the greatest danger posed by a hurricane is water. It is the #1 killer, and even though hurricanes are rated by wind speeds, some, quote, weaker storms have produced more damage and more deaths as a result of rising water.
The Saffir-Simpson scale, which is a wind-only scale, doesn't tell you anything about storm surge. Look at the devastating storm surge that we had from Sandy, and it was a Category 1. Similarly, Isaac produced well over 10 feet of storm surge, devastating to the upper Gulf Coast, only a Cat 1.
The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida has always stressed the importance of flood awareness. However, for the first time, a potential storm surge flooding map will be issued for areas along the Atlantic and Gulf Coast. The map will highlight how much storm surge flooding might occur based on the track and intensity of a storm.
With this new inundation graphic, there'll be a map, interactive map, where you can click on it, zoom into your local street level area, and see whether or not your community is going to be impacted by water and how deep it will be.
The map will only be issued in coordination with a hurricane or tropical storm watch. This new product is specifically designed to address one of the greatest threats during a hurricane, storm surge. But what if you live near the coast but not in a storm surge zone? The key is understanding your surrounding environment. Is it enclosed with trees? Do you live near a major river? And most importantly, do you live in an evacuation zone?
We have to really understand what we're vulnerable to where we live. Are you close enough to the ocean? And you might be more vulnerable than you think, even if you live a few miles from the coast, depending on where you live. Are you close enough to the ocean that storm surge flooding could happen where you live? You got to find out today if you live in a storm surge evacuation zone, because that might mean you would have to have a plan for evacuation.
Coming up after the break, we'll address hurricane evacuation zones. Do you know if you live in one? Stay tuned for the answer to this life-saving question. Hurricane preparedness tip number 2. Understand your insurance policy. You might have windstorm insurance, but that does not mean you have flood insurance. They are two separate types of coverage. The easiest thing you can do today is talk with your insurance agent. Remember to photograph your belongings as a way to document them just in case they get damaged. Also, most agencies won't let you purchase insurance if a storm is a few days away from making landfall.
Hurricane Horizons 2014, brought to you by Education First Federal Credit Union, Exogen Health and Fitness Club, Family Fun Fitness, FastFit, and Christus Hospital, St. Elizabeth and St. Mary.